Okay, everyone, we're going to move to the second portion of the day. How's everybody feeling? All right, some more energy. Can I get some more energy? Woo! All right. Hope your bellies are full. Hope you enjoyed the lunch offerings. It is my pleasure to introduce our panel. It's an educator check-in. When I was putting together the professional development of the Educator Lab, I really felt like it was important to hear from an educator who's in the classroom. As I've said before, I'm not a teacher that is in the classroom, but I had the opportunity to meet Alexis about a year ago. She is very familiar with the Photoville network, has actually utilized our curriculum in the classroom, and actually was an educator grantee in 2023. So her students project was actually in the festival last summer. And so we will hear from Alexis and her students from Bard High School about their project and also her work in the classroom.
Oh, they gave me the clicker. Hold on. Just have to find our slides here. Hi, everybody. Oh, I'm getting caught up on everything you've been doing here. I'm going the wrong way? Oh, sorry. So sorry. Sneak peek of what's to come. There we go. Okay. That's us. Awesome. I'm Alexis Lambrou. I teach photography, media literacy, and printmaking at Bard High School just down the street here on Houston Street. We walked here. It took us, 10 minutes maybe? Yeah. And I'm here with Ivy and Marty and Aspen. We had one other student, Jahara, who couldn't be with us today. She was sick, unfortunately. But we're super excited to be here and to tell you about our Speaking Portraits project that was exhibited at Photoville this past June, just like Corinne said. We started this project about 2 years ago, and I've sort of continued it with a number of classes, so you're seeing work from multiple different classes. It wasn't all created just in one class. It was amazing. It was so successful the first time. I was just kind of blown away by the work that the students produced. They harnessed this project to tell stories about their identities from racial, cultural, sexual, political. Some students told stories about stresses with schools, divorced parents, being children of immigrants. Some took the opportunity to express their allyship, pay homage to those that raised them, reflect on childhood memories and nursery rhymes, and to sort of talk back to societal stereotypes that were placed on them and their communities. So all sorts of things came up. And to me, as an educator, this is kind of one of the powers of visual storytelling. This is like one example of what it can look like in a classroom. And I just feel so grateful for the generosity of your stories to be open and sharing with us because, we're privileged to hear them. So thank you. And let's see, we actually started this project by looking at the work of Wendy Redstar, Shirin Neshat, and Wendy Ewald. And we started by discussing kind of the limitations of photography, like how much can we actually know about a person when we see a portrait of them? What are the sort of gaps? What is sort of missing? And so we look to these artists because they use annotation and text and drawing to sort of fill in those gaps. So for Wendy, show of hands, have people seen these works before? Some people. So Wendy Redstar is, she's a member of the Crow Reservation in Montana. On the left-hand side, this is her work. These were photographs that were taken at a peace delegation in DC. These were chiefs from the Crow Reservation that traveled to DC to meet with US government officials, and these images were sort of, there was no context with them. They were totally nameless. There was no information about who these people were. They were just floating around the public domain. So Wendy Redstar, what she did was she sort of restored meaning to these very important chiefs, talking about all the importance and symbolism of the regalia that they're wearing. So I think it's kind of amazing through this annotation, she's sort of restoring context and meaning. Let me just find myself in my notes here. Yeah, and Shirin Nishat is an Iranian artist who actually lives in exile now in New York City. And her work is sort of talking about, talking back to kind of oppressive structures placed on Muslim women specifically. And Wendy Ewald is sort of one of my art ed heroes. She collaborates with students all over the world to do these kind of portraits and has them write on these portraits together. So yeah. So and one thing I really appreciate about all their work is the inclusion of that it's actually handwriting. It's not typed on there, and I just think that adds so much kind of character and intimacy to the images, right? You feel like you're almost reading like a handwritten note that someone is passing to you. So I want to start by talking about Jahara's work, and she said, I'm just going to read, she sent me an email this morning. Again, she's sick and wasn't able to be here, but she said, I'd like to start off by saying I'm so sorry I couldn't make it to the panel today, but here is a short statement about my piece. This photo started out as simply an expression of my frustrations with how people pronounce my name. But the more I wrote, the more it became something for others to relate to. People whose names are simple in their culture, but for other people, their name is a tongue twister. For people who are given nicknames so that their name is more palatable, my photo is not simply a school project, but a piece for people with experiences like mine. Yeah, so she did a really fantastic job on that. And Marty. So Marty, I'll have you introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Marty. I'm a 10th grader at Bard High School Early College, Manhattan campus, and I'm from Brooklyn.
Awesome. And Marty, can you tell us a little about your piece? How did you decide what story you were going to tell, and were there any sort of key takeaways as you were making this project?
Yeah, I think definitely while I was taking it, when I first started, I was really worried about the grading and about, doing art for a school project. I do art outside of school, and it was kind of daunting to me to do that for judgment, but I guess the more that we talked about it in class, the more I was kind of like, this is my own thing, and it's my own thing for me to experience and create for myself rather than for a grade. So I found kind of getting to make it for myself and tell my own story to be really freeing, especially in the second semester when things were building up. And I think I chose to do mine in black and white. This is a photo that I had already taken before I started making the project. But it reminded me a lot of a photo that I have of my grandmother, who grew up in the 50s, and it's a portrait of her sitting by a window looking out. And it's really beautiful because it's in black and white, and it was developed as film, and it's kind of one of the only photos that she has of herself as a kid, because after that, it was hard for her to kind of document her life. There was a big rush of getting married, having kids, and all that. So I was, looking through my camera roll for photos that kind of reminded me of myself and of the other people in my life. And then the way that I did the writing, I was also really worried about my handwriting because it's notoriously kind of awful and really small. But I did it digitally with a little stylus, and I chose to write in Italian on my face, which is my first language, and I wrote in English on my clothes and on my neck. Two of the kind of main bits are I put a Hail Mary on my cheek here in Italian and another Hail Mary on my chest on the shirt, which was interesting. I think I chose to do that because I have two very different experiences of religion and of Catholicism from my Italian family and from my American family, and trying to kind of connect with faith here and not being able to do that, and trying to connect with faith over there and not being able to do that. So I wanted to, show that heritage of Catholicism in Italy as part of myself and something that I carry with me, and then that faith is something that I carry, externally. So that was, I guess, the symbolism that I found after that of writing things on clothes. And then one of Miss Lambrou said something about nursery rhymes, and one of the things that I wrote was a nursery rhyme that my mother used to tell me when I was a little kid. And essentially in English it goes, look up, look down, and give a kiss to whoever you want. And that was really meaningful to me as a child because I didn't like to sleep, and my mother would basically do anything she could to get me to finally take a nap. But now looking back, I think that lyric kind of instilled in me that I could love whoever I want and do whatever I want in life and experience things. And you might notice the only English word on my face is Well, I won't say it, but it's on my eyelid. That's something that I wear very proudly, and I think that the lullaby, definitely thinking about that being told to me when I was so young, definitely made it easier to come to terms with identity as a teenager. And I think, I don't know, it was never instilled in me to be ashamed of anything about who I am, and yeah, I think that lullaby is something that doesn't translate in language, but does translate in sentiment.
Thank you so much. All right, Ivy, let's hear from you.
Hi, my name's, is this, yeah. Hi, my name's Ivy. I'm a 11th grader at Bard, and I'm from Brooklyn, so, yeah.
And so I don't know if you can quite see this, but all of the writing on her face that is quite small. So Ivy, you were super meticulous with your work here. And it does remind me of one of Shirin Nishat's portraits that we looked at. It's a headshot of her with her face covered in very small sort of handwriting, and it's written in Arabic or in Farsi. And it almost doesn't matter that we can't speak the language or even read it because the text is so small, because the text is sort of functioning as a larger symbol, which I feel like is sort of what you're getting at here too. So can you tell us a little about your process? How long did this take you, and why the decision to make the text so small, and then also written in white so that it's really almost hard to read?
Yeah, so everything I wrote basically here is about hair, if you guys are curious what it's about. This was a school project, so I was worried about the kinds of things I would write about, and we were given a very basic framework that was writing about, like gender, sexuality, politics. Oh, okay, thank you. That's helpful. So yeah, we were given sort of very basic things that we could write about, and I was thinking about it for a really long time, and I was like, oh man, I don't know what is so remarkable about me that I could write about here. And I kind of came to this topic of hair, which I feel like encapsulates a lot of those things, like religion, sexuality, race, gender, politics, more, yeah, which I thought was really special and important. And I don't think really need to see the words, because most of them are pretty personal to me. I write a lot about my experience, people I know's hair, my hair, what it kind of means to a lot of the people that I am surrounded by. And I don't know, maybe it's important to know what the words are, but not necessarily what each of them are, if that makes sense. Like the general scope, I guess. But I don't know, I chose to make them very small because they are so personal. I didn't really want it to be something that is shared with everyone just right off the bat. If it was like one word, hair, I feel like it wouldn't have meant nearly as much. Yeah, I kind of forget. It was a lot of questions. It took me 11 hours to do this. So I had to enlargen the picture a lot. And then I was writing on it just on this iPad, so I'd make it big and then do a little scrolling and then slide over and scroll a bit more. And you can't really read it even when it is zoomed in. I can usually read my own handwriting, but oftentimes people told me that, like Marty, it's not the most neat. So, I did it all in about 2 5.5-hour sections. So I kind of really just sat down and worked on it the whole time. And I feel like that was important because all of my thoughts were just coming out kind of in one go, or 2 goes, I guess.
And did you write everything? Like, did you have a clear sense of what you were going to write about beforehand, or did it just sort of start flowing as you were working on it?
I kind of knew, like super basically, I knew I wanted to write about hair. And I started out in the corner, like on my temple there, I start out with my hair, and I think then I go to my family's hair, and then my friend's hair sort of is around the cheek area. I did do this last year, so I don't remember all of it necessarily. But yeah, it was kind of I didn't know exactly what I wanted to write. A lot of it was just me coming up with it, how I felt, and I talked to my friends as well before, and how they felt about their hair. I did not a similar project, but in my literature class the year before that, I did a project where I wrote about my friend's hair in a notebook that I had to turn in. And that was really special and important to me, and I collected some of their hair and put it in the notebook as well. It was a cool project, but I don't know. I'm very drawn to hair in my creative side, I guess, apparently.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ivy. Yeah, clap it. Awesome. And Aspen, introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, my name is Aspen, and I'm a 10th grader at BSEC. Oh, and I'm from Manhattan.
Awesome. And Aspen, in class, so we have iPads at class in school, and we have styluses, but we were really just using the markup app that like you have in your phones and just in the basic photo app. But you had access to Procreate at home. How did that platform help you produce your speaking portrait? And can you also talk a little bit about the phrase existence is resistance and the decision to repeat it over and over and over again?
Okay, so for the first question, using Procreate like helped because I was able to like be more meticulous and have more creative freedom, like with the type of like lines that I was doing and like the way that like certain letters look and like the way that the little symbol, the coquille at the bottom looks. Like I wouldn't be able to do that with like a simple markup tool. I mean, I could with like a lot of moral strength, but I didn't have that. So I decided to use Procreate as like an easier way to make it look how I wanted it to look, and just kind of have it be something that I like could work on with multiple layers and like be able to like manipulate and do whatever I wanted to. And then the phrase like existence is resistance repeated over is because when I was doing this project, I was thinking about all the different things that I could like incorporate into it. And like I was thinking about like gender, sexuality, race, all those types of things. And the thing that I think about first when I think about like identity and like who I am as a person is like being Boricua, being Puerto Rican, like being from the island and stuff like that. So I basically, I grew up in Spanish Harlem. I still live there, obviously. And that I live around a lot of other like Latinos and specifically Puerto Ricans and stuff like that. So it's like a very integral part of my life. And so back on the island, I assume that everybody in this room knows that Puerto Rico is a U.S. Commonwealth and not exactly its own independent like nation. It's the U.S. oldest colony and stuff like that. And the people, the Taino people there, have faced a lot of discrimination, genocide, like the paper genocide and like bombing and like a lot of like eugenics like ideology and like actions being posed against them to like whittle down their numbers and make them go away. But a lot of people, including myself, are connected to our Taino roots and like our Native American heritage. So the fact that there's 60% or more of the population of Puerto Rico has this connection to their Native American culture is why I decided to repeat existence as resistance, because even though we are constantly being colonized and not given aid, we still exist and we won't go away. So, yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, they really, I'm so blown away by all of your work, all of you. It's really, really fantastic. And I think it really speaks for itself. We were awarded the Photoville Educator Grant, and so along with that we received $500 of unrestricted funding, which as a public school teacher that like we know there's not a lot of stuff on Shop DOE. It's really helpful to have unrestricted funding, so I'm working on setting up a darkroom at the school, and so that funding is gonna go directly to setting up a darkroom. And we were also able to have our work exhibited at Photoville, which was really fantastic. Yeah, it's exciting. And they let us keep the banners, which is so awesome. And so this is a mock-up. They're going to go up in the next couple of weeks, but the banners will go up in front of Bard, right on Houston Street. We are one of the last buildings all the way east on Houston Street, but it is, we were just talking about this on the way over. Right here on Houston, this is like right where the bus stop gets off. So you'll get a lot of foot traffic, bus traffic, all the students. So we wanted to have the work in a really visible public space. So we're really excited to hang this up. And I just feel very kind of aligned with Photoville in thinking about like getting work kind of out of galleries and into the street and making it accessible for people. And so, yeah, we're so excited to be able to, with their help, we're able to do that. You know, they printed all the banners for us. So thank you. We also, this is when we exhibited our work, we just so happened to be exhibiting next to Kyle Liu, who's a professional photographer. He's also based in the Lower East Side. He's really fantastic. He also does work as a housing right advocacy. And this is his project. We went to Photoville for Education Day, which if you haven't taken, have people taken their students to Education Day? It is the best. If I can just, I've been taking my students there for years. Even in the pandemic when there was no in-person, Photoville arranged to have guest artists come and speak to my class virtually. And it's been so nice. You know, I just feel like you make it so special and easy for us as teachers. They have Education Day, so we got private tours with all of the photographers. We got to meet them, and they got us like the good pizza, not the dollar slice pizza, but like the bougie stuff, which was really nice. So they feed us and really sort of gave us kind of free reign of the space, which was fantastic. And so there was this kind of just serendipitous moment of, you know, we were meeting some of the photographers, and Kyle's work was installed right next to ours. And if you're not familiar with his work, this project, Sowing Rice with Salt, is he uses archival photographs of immigrant parents, and then he recreates that archival image with the child. And there's a writing piece accompanied and talking about questions of loss of culture or what gets passed down, issues of assimilation. And I just thought it was really powerful and would resonate with a lot of our students. And so Corinne, just being the amazing woman that she is, was like, oh, let's make it happen. So next week, actually, Kyle will be coming to the classroom, is gonna give an artist talk, and we're gonna be making very similar work, students are gonna be drawing on archives, their own personal archives, and then recreating those images. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, what else can I say to you? Yeah, I've been around Photoville for many years at this point in many different capacities. I found some old photos, let's see, from 10 years ago and then on. On the left, 2013, that was my very first pinhole workshop that I led at Photoville. And the next year we actually turned an entire shipping container into a camera obscura, which was awesome, and brought a bunch of middle schoolers in there and totally blew their minds. It was like an extraordinary experience. And so I feel like I'm really grateful for the sort of collaboration with Photoville. I feel like as I have grown as an artist and an educator, they have also grown. They've like continued to be really open and responsive for finding meaningful ways to work with me and my students. So, yeah, thank you. I think we have time for some questions if anybody wants to ask the artists about anything, or myself.
I have a question for the artist. When you were making your portraits, when you're writing your words, when you take your images, do you take the images with your words in mind? Or are you taking the photo and then looking at it and then deciding what the photo speaks to you about?
Sorry, can you repeat that last part?
I'm trying to find out, it's like, when you created these works, did you take the photo, did you compose yourself with the words in the, I'm sorry. when you took these
Sorry.
photos, right? Did you do it with the words in mind? Did you pose yourself? Did you compose the image knowing what you were going to write, or did you take the images and then look at the images and decide what the story was coming from the images and then created your words? Does that make any sense? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Oh, okay, got you. So for me, we actually during the process we took multiple photos in order to like see which one we liked the best, and I actually had like a different one that I was gonna go for that kind of is similar to Can you move back to Wendy Red Star? Yes. Okay. Okay, so you see Wendy Red Stars. I was actually inspired by that one, and I was thinking of adding like different things that were like significant to like Taino culture and stuff like that. But I decided on the eye because of its significance to like Native American culture as a whole, like being like the windows to the soul and stuff like that. And like how I thought that like being Boricua was like literally a part of my soul, like it is who I am. Which is why I decided to choose that. But I mean, obviously I can't speak for everybody else because they could have just taken pictures and said, this is what works. But I think generally that's kind of the same vibe that everybody has. Like, oh, I take this picture and then it works really well with what I want to do. And it's kind of like, I don't know, you kind of contextualize it as you go.
Any comments, any questions about the process, challenges during the project? Well, I will ask a question. Anybody else?
Sorry. So you showed the work to introduce the project, but what about for the writing? Did you just allow, and maybe the students want to answer, did you give them prompts for the writing, or were they able to just do whatever they wanted? And did they write it out beforehand, or did they just do it kind of spontaneously? Or I'm sure everybody had different approaches, but from your end, were you trying to focus the writing in some certain area?
Yeah, definitely. We did do writing beforehand. They were given prompts, specific or sort of open-ended prompts that would allow them to kind of, think of one specific story or a family history or an aspect of their identity, anything that was sort of rising to the surface. I think a lot of people, a lot of feedback I got from students were saying, oh, well, I don't feel so political, or I don't feel like, maybe that doesn't make sense for me. And so we were trying to think of other experiences that gave every student an access point. So like I said, some students wrote about like the experience of their parents getting divorced, or the stresses of school, or body image issues, right? So it was really just any sort of type of personal storytelling. And of course I gave them a beautiful prompt to write on, and some folks did it, but then I think some people like, and please jump in, but I feel like some of the writing maybe didn't make sense with the photograph then. Like we wrote first and then photographed, and then sometimes I think some students found that there was a disconnect, and so then they either changed their writing or they changed their photograph to have it make a little bit more sense. Yeah. Did that sound right?
Yeah. Hello. Thank you all for sharing. I'm curious, as photographers, if this was your first time taking or making self-portraits, and if you've noticed a difference in the way it feels to perceive yourself versus to be photographed by someone else.
I can answer this one maybe. I think so. I didn't actually take the photo of me, but this was my first time kind of getting, I guess, a professional photo taken. I don't have that experience very often of like seeing my face, especially not in this manner, like up on a board or anything very often. And that is part of the reason why I chose to ask the photographer if they could take it a little bit closer. And the words are covering a lot of my face as well. It did sort of stem from a place of insecurity in having like that photo being taken of me. And it wasn't just like, oh, like a selfie with friends or something. It was very different from that. And that is, I didn't want to lose my face entirely though while I was making it. So you can see I'm trying to follow the contours of my face a little bit with the words, and the spacing and the size of each word as well. Kind of changes depending on how I was feeling or the kinds of things I was writing about. So I think it all does connect, but yeah, I guess this is my first time getting a real photo taken of me or taking real photos of people that were very professional in that sense.
Yeah, we set up a sort of makeshift studio in the classroom, and so every student was making portraits or working in pairs, making portraits in the classroom, but then there was also the option to take the photograph outside of school. But I wanted everybody to at least photograph in the classroom just so they had something to work on if they weren't able to make photographs at home for whatever reason. Like Marty, you had made that portrait previously, right? That was a
Yeah.
photograph you already had.
Yeah, I mean, I took a selfie because I don't trust myself to don't trust other people to take photos of me that make me feel good about myself. I think I did the like classic teenage girl move of like combing my camera roll for something that I was like, okay, I would feel okay staring at this photo because it is, I think the most jarring thing about it is like, I don't know if you experience this looking at your own like eyes, but it's like you look at your face for a really long time to the point where like, it's kind of like when you look in the mirror for so long that your features don't even look like you anymore. They kind of just look like this, like abstraction of a human. So I think is definitely very strange to kind of have to be confronted with your face so closely. And I mean, I've done like self-portrait work before, not in like the medium of photography, but I've done like hand-drawn self-portraits, and like it's the same where you're kind of like looking at things, and instead of looking at your face like a face, you kind of have to look at it like this weird collection of like shapes and things that kind of managed to make up you in the end.
It's like if you say a word over and over and
Yeah,
over again, it just starts
exactly.
to become something else, yeah.
I have a twofold, oh, that was so much louder than I expected. I have a twofold question for you guys. First of all, both of you, when talking about the idea of portraiture versus selfies, are sort of like flirting or like around the idea that of differentiation between the process of taking a selfie versus a self-portrait, that you're then going in and adding additional context, right? Whether or not your role as model is also like you're having a relationship with the photographer. So I'm curious to know how the idea of being teenagers who take selfies all the time, right? Not to make an assumption, but you know, as a generation, what is that process like for you to then be able to make a self-portrait, differentiating the two? And separately, because I know I'm going to give up the microphone, what was it like to see your work on display?
Do you want to start? You can start.
Sorry, what was the beginning half of that question again, really quick? Sorry.
Selfies versus self-portrait.
Self-portrait versus selfie, like what was that process, differentiating the two, what was that like for you guys?
Okay. I'm pretty critical of myself, and especially myself in photos. That is just a very common trend, selfie or not. But it's kind of this thing where you're holding up the phone and you see the reflection and it's right in front of you. So, you know, I can decide if I want to contort my face maybe a different way. But when somebody has the camera up close, you don't necessarily know how you look. And then you have to wait till you turn the camera around and see it back. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's how I look. But it's this weird thing of somebody else is, what's the word? Starts with a P? Perceiving, thank you. Someone else is perceiving you. And it's not yourself, and you don't get to go back and like delete the ones that maybe you don't like because they're someone else's, if that makes sense. So that was kind of the main differentiation that I found, is the loss of control almost. Even though I was saying, hey, can you take it this way instead of this way, you're still not seeing it as it's being taken. So it might not come out exactly how you wanted it to or how you thought it might look. And the other half, how did it feel seeing myself. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to go to Photoville, but I can still see it here, and I will see it very shortly at Bard.
Every day.
Every day at Bard.
So excited.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it was the kind of thing where I did get to choose the photo, but and of course I consented to being here, and also I consented for it to be up on there. So it's not that I absolutely despise the photo or anything, that I don't want it up there. It was kind of the opposite. It was really cool seeing my work there, and like this thing that I spent so long on, and like really meticulously, I was writing all of it and everything, and it is cool to have that up and for people to be able to see that. I think that's a really special experience.
Okay. I think, yeah, I agree with Ivy. There's definitely this, like, the loss of control. It's really weird to feel like obviously you're consenting to having the photo taken of you, but you're not really, I guess it's part of it, like, you're not really consenting to the way that the other person sees you. I think it's, like, taking a selfie is very much, I mean, sometimes I'll be trying to, like, capture a moment or something, and I'll open my phone and I'll see my face, and I'm like, whoa, that's me. And you have this, like, seeing yourself from the outside moment, and I think you get even more of that when you let somebody else take a photo of you. I mean, the photo that I chose to work on was me and myself in a selfie, but I also did do, like, I had a friend of mine take photos of me so I could, like, kind of compare different things, and it was looking at those photos, it was like, whoa, this is how other people think that you look, and you kind of have to come to terms with the fact that, like, the way you like to think of yourself in your head and the way you like to, like, present your face to you is very different from how other people see you just walking around. And I think having that, like, solidified in a photo, solidified in pixels is, like, really jarring. And I think, like, again, I also agree. It's really, I mean, it's, like, scary, but it's also really cool to see something that I made up there. I think, like, I don't know, there's something cool about having done something for a class and having done it for yourself and then getting to let other people see it and experience it and hopefully enjoy it.
I just want to add on to that makes my heart sing as a teacher to hear. But I also think that I am always thinking about that too, of how do you get beyond just making work for school so that it doesn't, here's a art project we made and we hung it in the hallway and yay, nice, and maybe our parents come and see it. So I think always looking for opportunities to kind of get the work out into the world and have as much people see it as possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, was it me? No, sorry. I was just going to say congratulations, ladies. Like, you talk so beautifully and honestly about your work, and I hope you feel really proud. And your teacher as well. Well done. It's incredible. I just had a comment and I had a practical question. So, Ivy, when I saw your work come up on the screen, what I saw was fingerprints. I just wanted to kind of pass that on. I don't know if anyone had said that, but just the way that you sort of lace together, like, your writing, it kind of feels like, fingerprints to me, and like an extra feeling of touch. And I've recently gone through lots of immigration things and had to give my fingerprints like a million times, so maybe it's just like on the forefront of my mind, but I just wanted to say that, yeah, that was a strong visual feeling that I got. And I think just hearing you talk so eloquently about your work and like the intimacy, and almost like you don't need to hide you can hide some of the things you might want to say, or you don't have to share everything like really loudly. It can be really, really soft and quiet, and there's just something about the touch of that I felt, so I just wanted to pass that on.
Thank you so much.
And then, yeah, just like on a practical note, I just wondered, like, you've put this together and how long it took you to do it, like what was the timeline, and I think this question also it's kind of led into lots of different directions that maybe you didn't expect. You didn't know that it was going to end up on the wall of your exterior of your school. So, like, yeah, something about like how long it took you to put the program together, how often you met. That could help us as educators in the room. And yeah, that question of like, who is your art for? Because it's kind of ended up going to audiences maybe you didn't imagine.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. It took me 11 hours just the writing, and I only know that because I was also doing it on Procreate. I borrowed or stole my friend's iPad so that I could use his thing, because obviously the markup app, it doesn't go that small. So that was just the writing time, and Procreate calculates that for you, which was very cool. But there was a lot more behind it, where I was like thinking about what I wanted to do, and in class we were taking the photos, and none of that's really included in those 11 hours. But it was still very much like a labor of love, and I was writing a lot, taking a while, but I don't know. I like the end result, and the fact that it is kind of, it's up there and it's on the wall, so everyone can see it, but no one can really read it, and only I know it's exactly on there, I think is very special, and I enjoy that part about it. And I don't know, I think it's interesting as well that maybe I'm the only person who can really enjoy that, because I wrote it. So I don't, yeah, I forget all of the questions, I'm sorry. My memory's not so good, but yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think I love that idea of having work be so public, and yet it also is also just for you. So I think you struck that balance really nicely. Like on the teacher end, so my classes are semester long. They're 16 weeks, and our class meets twice a week for 45 minutes. So I think we spent 3 weeks on this. Does that sound right? Something like that? 3 weeks. Like the first week, just exploring the artists, I linked to actually talks and interviews with each of the artists, so they could hear, so students could sort of hear for themselves. So we did sort of an artist exploration one day, then introducing the project. I think we spent another couple of days doing writing, another couple of days photographing, and then editing. So maybe it was more like a month. Yeah. Give or take. Yeah, and students were coming in, like people came in or were working like Aspen and Ivy did, sort of at home, and also coming in on their free periods to use the iPads as well. So yeah, all in all about a month. And then we had like a formal critique as well of the work.
Yes, I wanted to share just, first of all, I remember this from Photoville, this exhibition, and it was so incredibly moving. So thank you so much for creating the work. And my question is for any of you that would like to share, what, as young adults, how important to you is arts programs for people your age?
I guess my time to speak. Art programs for people our age? Well, I feel like those types of programs are really significant for people that are trying to get into art and trying to like expand their resume and like get their work out there, because the trope of the starving artist, like it's in New York especially, like it's extremely hard to be somebody who is somebody in New York. Like it's hard to get your work out there. Like you can be one of the best, but there are people that are of your level or even better than you are. So I feel like having programs that like help you get to, like expand your reach are incredibly important and like are pretty good like networking opportunities. So yeah, they're incredibly valuable in my opinion, and I feel like there should be more.
This was great to hear. Thank you so much. I have a question, Alexis, for you just as a teacher. Did you, or actually maybe the students too, was there resistance to the project in terms of sharing, like you talked about that a little bit of like, well, I don't have an issue, but also just the idea of self-portraits, and how did you get around that or not get around it?
Yeah, definitely. There's always pushback, of course. And for good reason, I think. I think a lot of the like concerns and anxieties that students brought were totally fair. A lot of kids were like, well, I don't want to show my face, And so that sort of opened up another interesting conversation. How do you make a self-portrait without showing your face, right? Or can you zoom in? Like Aspen, yours is almost unrecognizable, right? Like if we didn't know it was yours.
I mean, I know my eye and my eyebrow. So.
Whereas Martina's, yours is much more, we see you. And so we did some interesting, had some sort of interesting problem solving about that, thinking about, I had another student, I think Zola actually stood with their back to the camera completely, and then all of the writing was just done on their back.
Yeah, her piece is brilliant. It's really, she was, I mean, like I don't know everything, but it's a photo of like her facing the camera that her sister took, and it's just her shoulders, but it's like her bare shoulders, and she did a really great job of like balancing, of finding vulnerability even without the vulnerability of like showing your face and kind of feeling on display.
Totally. And also thinking about, just before this, we had done like a very quick kind of basic lighting lab to doing like split lighting and Rembrandt lighting and different, split lighting, or what did I say? Yeah, split lighting, butterfly lighting, those few things, and how, you can use light and shadow to kind of obscure your face as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you for sharing. I love hearing from students and teachers. I was just wondering, I know I teach elementary, and sometimes you get pushback or from admin. They want you to teach to the standards. So I teach just general ed. So I don't know about like art photography standards, but I was just wondering like. Did you have to follow certain standards or certain rules from admin, or did you have more creative control?
Yeah, I feel really fortunate to teach at Bard. I write all my own curriculum entirely. And then borrow from people, also from Photoville and friends, but I have very limited constraints on what I can do, really. So I feel really, really grateful for that. Yeah, and I recognize that is not the experience of all teachers, and so I absolutely do not take that for granted, because I know that some things that are maybe possible at my school are not possible other places. Yeah.
This is for the students. Hello, it's for students. Did you have a musical playlist as you were creating, or did you have like food, snacks that helped you keep going? And I think sometimes we don't talk about that enough because I'm a foodie. So let me.
I can do this one. So I feel like for me it was difficult to write with music, or at least English music, just because then I couldn't really concentrate as much on what I wanted to hear. But I don't know, I do really like listening to music while I do work, especially a lot of times I don't listen to music in English. That's very helpful for me. As for the food, I got really into Cheez-Its while writing this. So yeah. I tried a lot, actually. So I went through a lot of that while I was writing, and also I was writing, so I did most of it, like I was saying, in 2 like 5.5-ish hours, and I was obviously eating during that time. And so, yeah, I would say Cheez-Its were a big help. And that, I don't think I have ever gotten as into Cheez-Its during that time, or ever will, maybe. But it was great. I recommend it if you guys are doing a lot of writing, having some on the side. It's great. Yeah. Well, that's true.
Other snacks or songs?
Well, I kind of do this thing like where when I do art is that I have to finish it before I do anything else. So I kind of like weirdly like neglect any other part. So like, I'm sorry to the foodies in the crowd, but but the only thing that I think that like I can answer for that question is like the playlist. I was listening to weirdly a lot of like The Weeknd, because like those types of songs, like they're of like a similar like composition. So it's not like gonna interrupt my flow. And it's just like I keep going and doing the same thing over and over and over again. So it kind of helped with that like repetitiveness of rewriting the same phrase over and over and over again and drawing the same things over and over again. So that was.
Hey, can I jump in for a second? It's Dave from Photoville. This is my one chance to say one thing. But you were talking about the music in the beginning. Yeah, I listen to music when I'm making things, and it has to be the right thing. But I had a couple experiences at the end. Does anybody know who Grandma Techno is, the artist from Detroit? Patricia Leigh Dorsey is a photographer, and she's known as Grandma Techno because she has been going to the Techno Festival, which is the largest United States festival of technical music every year. And she's in a mobility scooter, so she became known as Grandma Techno. And she has shot photos, thousands and thousands of photos. So she came out with a book not that long ago. She sent me the book, and I was with my partner, and I said, hey, let's together, because she knows her, let's look at this book together. Let's have an experience instead of watching television while you're looking at something, right? So we sat down and I said, wait a minute, something's missing. We need to listen to techno music. So we went, you Google Detroit Techno, there's 25 different mixes on Spotify. We put it up, it was fantastic. It was fantastic, it all fit together. So there's a way to do that. And also I just wanted to go back to when we had our gallery in Dumbo. We used an artist who had some early photos from his teenage years, and they're Italian, and one of the photos was this huge table at Christmas time with this bright red tablecloth and all these cookies and food and everything set out. So on the last day of the show, Sam and I decided to duplicate that experience in the gallery, and we had the whole table, the tablecloth, the food. Sam Barsley was making a lasagna at his house, bringing it in. We got the cookies, but it was a way to connect all these things, food, music, everything together, because on some level, as we all know, it's all interlaced together.
Well, I wanted to give a warm round of applause for Alexis and her amazing students from Bard High School for sharing their amazing projects, speaking portraits, and sharing your artistic process with us. It's definitely a pleasure to hear from youth about their work and also an insight into what is going on in the classroom. Like I said, I'm outside of the classroom, and it's important for us to hear from our young people as well as our educators to make sure that we are in tune with what is happening in our education system. So again, just a round of applause for Alexis and for her students for taking time out of the school day to come and spend time with us.